Hi, so today I'm going to be talking about the TVA. Now, TVA stands for Tennessee Valley Authority, and it's this organization that was established in 1933 as part of, Roosevelt's alphabet soup, which in turn was part of the whole New Deal fiasco after the New Deal after the Great Depression fiasco. So, yeah, it's just providing jobs and electricity to rural towns in Tennessee, and it would span eventually onto 7 states, and it still exists, like it's still in place today. So yeah, let's get right into it. So it all starts just all the way back to Muscle Shoals in Alabama. And it's like near the southern bank of the Tennessee River. So now, the whole thing doesn't start in 1933, no, it starts way before this, in 1916, so under Woodrow Wilson. Well, Wilson, he decided he would, in order to provide electricity, build a hydroelectric dam near in Muscle Shoals. And, well, this dam was named Wilson Dam, and well, it was to provide power for munitions. The U.S. wouldn't join the war until the next year, but they knew where it was heading, so they wanted to provide powerful munitions. However, little problem. The war ended in 1918, so they didn't have enough time to actually finish the dam, but it was there. And well, construction was kind of slowed down and delayed until 1920s, and even Congress, they were like, dude, what's the point? The war's over. Do we really need to spend this much government money on this when the economy is booming? We don't really need this dam. Some even want to sell it to private sector to just make more money, and others thought, let's just take care of the government can take care of it and just keep it in check and keep it controlled and manage it. So this guy in Nebraska called Senator George Norris, he proposed this bill known as the Muscle Shoals bill. And this what it really does is allow the government to use the dam to produce electricity to produce and also sell it, And well, the senator from Nebraska, he proposed a bill, but the president at the time, now Herbert Hoover, he vetoed it. He said nope. This was in 1931. The Great Depression at this point had already started. And the Wall Street crash had been in 1929, so the economy was bad, but Herbert Hoover, he's like, no, we're not doing that. So, he was a Republican, and he said, it's not the government's job to actually do this, it's private sector, so we can let those companies organize it. The government, we can just, they're safe out, just keep out of it. Let's do. And well, the Great Depression wasn't slowing down. It was just getting worse and worse and worse. And people started losing faith in private sectors because the country had been running on Republican president. Not running on, but the president had been Woodrow Wilson, Democrat. Oh, by the way, like I said, he was the one who proposed this. Then came Harding, who was a Republican. Then came Coolidge, Republican, and then came Hoover, Republican. So the country was kind of used to this Republican president style. And they put all their trust in private sectors, but these were the ones collapsing. And so they started losing their trust and their belief in them. And they thought, why don't we try public ownership? Why don't we make sure the government knows what it's doing. Like, it's not just leaving things to the private sectors. We can let the government kind of handle this stuff. And well, I mean, he did build the Hoover Dam. I mean, that's a really famous. You can still visit it today. It's still functioning, and it was a huge success. But now came the next president, FDR. He was a Democrat. The country had grown tired of electing Republican after Republican, and they thought a different approach had to be taken away from private sectors back into the public domain. And that's what they did, electing FDR, Democratic president. So, when he was drafting the Tennessee Valley Authority Act, he knew that he had obviously started the whole the thing was already started with the whole Muscle Shoals project bill. And he knew that worked, and he knew the Hoover Dam worked. So, I mean, the Hoover Dam, I don't know when it began. I don't want to finish construction, but it was Hoover's idea. Anyway, he knew that there were good ideas, but he needed more. So he thought he would make this act. And he did incorporate the Wilson Dam as the first of the dams that would form part of the whole TVA. So, now to the actual TVA, because I've mentioned a lot of backstory. I haven't even started on the TVA. Now, Roosevelt, he signed this on May 18th, 1933. This is within the 100 days from the beginning of the presidency. And, well, I mean, it's part of, like I said, the alphabet agencies, and these include like WRA, CCC, NRA, LDPA. There's so many. Like, I made a video on it ages ago, so if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. And yeah, these agencies, and the New Deal itself was to make these agencies, which would then have their own policies, and the purpose of this was to help him implement measures. Yeah. So, what was the actual role of a TVA? What did FDR tell the TVA to do? Well, he said that they needed to improve the Tennessee River. Like, they just needed to improve it. Like, straight up. Also, they needed to prevent like flood control, through reforestation, and improve agriculture, commerce, industry, and also operate the hydroelectric Wilson Dam. And it included, like, I'm going to name the states, Tennessee and Alabama, which I've already mentioned, and then Mississippi, Kentucky, Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia. Also, they made towns along the river, one of them being Norris. And this town thing is, it didn't allow Black people to live there. So, FDR, yeah, his policies were good, but he was still kind of, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Anyway, as well as the Wilson Dam, the TVA, was allowed to gain authority to acquire lands. And these lands, they would just have the lands along the Tennessee River and the tributaries all ending on the Tennessee River. And it would just let them make more dams and more transmission lines and power plants, whatever they needed to do to make sure the people around there got electricity at a reasonable price. They were free in some parts. And also, the TVA wanted to modernize the area, not just leave it in the 20th century, try to modernize it, in the early 20th century. And like I said, the energy rates were low, they were affordable, because FDR knew that the people couldn't, I say FDR, but it wasn't just him. he knew that people couldn't afford expensive bills, so the best way to do so was making electricity cheap, accessible. And it was really to rural areas because all these states, you think Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Kentucky, North Carolina, Virginia, they're not extremely rural, they're not the Midwest, but they're not exactly LA, they're not exactly New York. I mean, even back then, they were not anywhere near as developed as they are now, but still, they were quite rural areas and they needed electricity. So, I mean, anything any president does, be that Republican or Democrat, he's going to face criticism. And FDR was no exception. The TVA wasn't exactly his best received policy. Well, it was extremely controversial. I mean, the whole New Deal itself was extremely controversial. But yeah, and let's start from the most obvious part. Let's say you manage an electricity company. You're a part of the private sector. Of course, you're not gonna like that this government, new president, this Democrat, is making electricity cheaper and more accessible, so people are not coming to your business, so you're not making any money, and that's not gonna float your boat, you know. That's just gonna make you suffer more economically. Well, and also, many Republicans did oppose this approach to the people. Republicans, they didn't like how the government was now directly helping the people. They thought their policies would be to step back, let things happen. It had worked in the 1920s. Why shouldn't it work now? And yeah, that was another source of criticism. Now, this criticism wasn't just newspapers. It wasn't just voices in the street saying, "Oh my God, FDR is making such a horrible job." No, there were actual court cases involved. And then in the 1930s, and they thought, well, this whole TVA business, it's unconstitutional. No, we should scrap this, remove all dams, go back to the private sector, and be done with it. Wendell Wilkie, amazing name. He was counsel and then president of the Commonwealth and Southern Corporation. He had different companies, like had several holdings in a company in Atlanta, Georgia, and he just fought again and again against the TVA in Congress. He just kept on fighting against it. And even got the case against the TVA to go all the way to Supreme Court. I mean, he lost the case, the government won, because it was deemed constitutional. I mean, the NRA was even deemed unconstitutional. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, FDR won the case. Well, people who, I mean, there was obviously some supporters of TVA. These people believed that the model the TVA would set out would be to build all the public utility and economic development agencies to not only make the electricity better, but to improve other aspects of society, not just in the rural areas, but also into urban areas. Well, Wilkie, he saw this idea in Congress, because he was in Congress. I said, no, you got away with the TVA. I am not letting you develop it any further. I mean, Wilkie did run for president in 1940. Lost. But, I mean, they're in the middle of a war, and FDR, he kind of knew what he was doing. And so he lost the 1940s election, which would be FDR's third term. Yeah. So, well, I mean, you should see the cartoons in this area, like from this area, yeah, in this time period about the TVA and the New Deal. Really, it's all comparing it to socialism. They really believed that FDR, I mean, the Red Scare was kind of present during this period, but they believed that FDR was out to get the American people. I'm going to impose socialist policies on you. Suck on that. That's what they believed. And FDR just wanted what was best for the country, and he did what he thought was right. And what can you do about it? So, what happened after the TVA? Well, after, it's still in place, but what happened after FDR? So, this whole policy allowed the Tennessee Valley, because new dams and reservoirs were allowed to be built to produce electricity, to control floods, to control soil erosion, to improve farming techniques, to improve navigation, to improve commerce, to give some people houses. It's just, it did a lot of things. I mean, yes, towns like Norris were not amazing racial-wise, but it's more than Hoover did. It's something. He could have done more, definitely, but it's something. By 1934, I said after Roosevelt, I mean after the implementation. All right. 1934. So around 1 year, I don't know exactly the date, but around 1 year after its implementation, the TVA managed to find employment for 9,000 people. 9,000 people who, without this agency, without this government help, would have been jobless and probably would have starved. Like many did, but the TVA gave them jobs. And they managed to build 16 dams between 1933 and 1934. 16 dams. You know how huge these things are and how hard it is to actually build one? I've seen pictures, I've looked at the materials they used and the weights and everything. They built 16 in a year. That is impressive. And the TVA also helped farmers, like I said, improve agriculture. It just improved so much. It's crazy. Farming techniques were improved, the productivity obviously increased, and well, crop rotation was implemented in some areas. Erosion was decreased. I mentioned this before. And they started using phosphate fertilizers, which really helped. And I mean, the majority of the communities had a really, really positive impact. There were some negatives. Norris Dam was built. I've mentioned Norris. Around 3,500 families were displaced. They flooded an area of around 239 square acres in the Norris Basin. So that was kind of huge displacement, which the government did literally nothing to help. Yeah, nothing. Now, what is the TVA like today? Post-Roosevelt. So, like 21st century. Well, it's still one of the largest electricity providers in the US. It contains 30 dams or hydroelectric facilities, 8 coal plants, 60 natural gas plants, 3 nuclear plants, 14 solar energy sites, and 1 wind energy site. Imagine all this if the government, what would the US do if the government had shut down the TVA? It's helped so many people since 1933, which was when it was implemented. May 1933. There have been kind of a lot of lawsuits regarding coal ash, fall combustion, like toxic byproducts. And then in 2008, the dike rupture of the TVA's Kingston fossil plant, which is in Tennessee, it spilled around 1 billion gallons of coal ash slurry, which covered land, inundated houses, filled tributaries, kind of made a whole mess. And it was the largest coal ash spill in all US history, which was not good. But yeah, that I don't. It's 2008, so that is 13 years ago. Yeah, 13 years ago. So yeah, I mean, TVA has done wonders for a lot of people. It's not perfect, but it's done a lot. And yeah, that's what can be said with Hoover, for example. I mean, Hoover did try to build the Hoover Dam, which again, huge success, and did help with the TVA, but FDR did do the whole bulk, and Wilson started the whole thing. So yeah, that is pretty much it. Yeah, I thought I'd make a video on the TVA. If you know me, you know why I've made this video. So yeah, and yeah, that is pretty much it. I have nothing else to say. So yeah, I hope you liked it. I hope you found it interesting, and that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.